Okay, thanks, Rick. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 10th, 2023 meeting of the Montclair Historic Preservation Commission. This meeting is in accordance with the Sunshine Laws of New Jersey. Notice has been posted in the Herald News, the Montclair Times, and the Star Ledger, as well as being posted in City Hall. And Janice, we welcome Janice Talley as our Assistant Secretary. Acting, was Assistant, now Acting Secretary.
Okay.
So at this point, Janice, I ask you to call the roll.
Absolutely. Chair Bennett.
Present.
Vice Chair Heineman.
Here.
Mr. Rooney.
Here.
Mr. Reinitz.
Here.
Mr. Graham.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney is excused. And Mr. Giuliano.
Here.
Okay.
And Miss, did you call Margaret?
Oh, okay. Well, what we have tonight, we have Board Attorney, or Commissioner Attorney Janine Bauer, and Margaret Hickey, who is the HPC consultant.
Thank you.
And we have our structural engineer consultant, Peter Tenkate from Boswell Engineering.
Welcome, okay, thank you. The first on our order of business is the approval of minutes. Has everyone that was here last year had an opportunity to read the minutes? Are there any changes or addendum? I have one, if nobody else does, on page 2, line 39. If that sentence if you could change that sentence, Janice. It currently reads, the commission discussed having a representative of the HPC plugged into building inspection. And so the new sentence would read, the commission discussed having a representative of the HPC interface with the building department to assure that projects which receive certificates of appropriateness cannot be closed without HPC sign-off to ensure that HPC approvals are adhered to.
I assume you can give me your
Yes,
handwritten notes.
okay,
Yeah.
yes, if you remind me, I will do that. So does anyone else have any changes?
No, Chair, but I would just note that there are some topics that Mr. Rimas brought up that we should address again tonight. I don't know that we've taken action on those items addressed. The Bellevue and also this issue with the inspections.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we can do that during our discussion period, okay? All right, thank you. So with that, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve is amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And now we have public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the HPC on anything that's on the agenda tonight? No. All right, with that, the public comment is closed, and we move forward to committee reports. So committee reports. I had a meeting on August 1st with Lindsay Thurnick, who's the representative of the State SHPO office, and it was a meeting to assess the CLG, which is a certified grant program certified local government program that we're part of. And she was here to observe, and she was here for the May, which we actually had one in May and one in June. She was here for the June Preservation Awards, and she was very impressed. She said that she thought our commission was doing a great job. So thank you, everybody. And she gave me suggestions for next year for the grant that we will apply for again. And we've been very successful with the grants that we've gotten from the CLJ program. So that was a very positive thing. We also I spoke again with the representative from the library. We will be doing a Research Your Home program in October, 2 days in October 14th, and I think it's October 20th. So as our next meeting, I will ask for volunteers if anyone would like to go. It's a cooperative. We have 3 entities that do this, the library, the HPC, and also the Montclair History Center. And it's been extremely popular. So it'd be great for us to reach out more into the community. And I know I've done it, Steve has done it, and it would be great if other people would just see. It's really very, very interesting. The other thing is, in May, a member of the public stood up to speak to ask about what's going on with the house at 105 Upper Mountain Avenue, and that is the William Cooper house. It's an Italian villa. It was built by one of our architects here, Norris, very famous sort of replica of the Italianate villa that the family lived in Florence when William Cooper was doing all of his very, most famous sculpture works, which are at the Montclair Art Museum, and many of them are up and down in museums up and down the East Coast. So he asked whether that could be a nomination report for a local nomination. It's currently state listed, but not locally listed. And we had another member of the community step forward to write the report. So they will be presenting it to us at the September meeting. So I think that's very positive too. So we need to get more people, involved in the preservation efforts. So does anyone else have any other? We haven't had any minor applications meetings nor revisions meetings for this month. So are we due to have one next week, Janice? Or we had them scheduled on Thursday. Do you have any applications?
I have one that I received in the past day or two.
Okay,
So we have one coming, I have to double check.
okay, I just
So-
added, yeah. I mean, you sent us the web links.
I have, the meetings are already scheduled.
Right.
And if we have an application, we'll have the meeting, and if there's no applications, I'll just cancel it.
Okay, all right, just to know that. So with that, I don't think there's any other things that we have to discuss, and so we'll be moving forward to old business. So old business on the agenda tonight was a discussion for the Label Street local landmark nomination, local districting nomination. That will be carried until next month. However, we will take jurisdiction of the report. And now I'm going to turn to our attorney so she can explain what it is that will happen next month at the September 14th meeting.
Sure. There was an initial report, and then the commission determined to revise it. The revised report was completed, and then per the municipal land use law, we had to notify the property owners because Tommy was either gone or in transition. I don't remember. My office took over the certified mail return receipt requested requirement, and we did receive a green card back from Tom Troutner's client, Tom Troutner being the attorney for the objector, and we didn't get a green card back from the property owned by Steve Plofker's LLC, but we had several emails, both with him and his assistant, who assured us that the letter and the revised report had been received, which is sufficient for me to declare that we have met the requirement of notice. So we're just taking jurisdiction of the revised report essentially as though it's new, because in a way it is new, and we're carrying it per agreement with Mr. Troutner to the September meeting. So we'll just start from scratch there.
And at that meeting, there will be, it's a public,
The public hearing will take
How
place.
public hearing, yes.
Assuming that our presentation of the report and the objector's expert will present on their objection to the report, and then it'll be open to public hearing. I don't obviously know how long that will take. It'll be contentious, so make sure to be prepared. But that'll just happen in due course, and obviously, assuming there's time, we'll take public comment at that time. So, yeah, public hearing will be part of it, just as it is on any application or any nomination.
So with that in mind, and thinking it may take longer, and I know we have two other things on the agenda for next month, do you think we should begin the meeting earlier at 7 o'clock? Would that be
Well,
feasible?
no, I think we already noticed for the
Yeah.
meeting.
We-
Oh,
We
okay.
can't change
We
that
can't
now.
change the time.
Yeah.
All right, we have the
Yeah.
day.
All
right, so-
We can't change anything now.
Okay, all right, so 7:30 next month, September 14th.
Question for Janice, what do we have, what other applications do we have that night? Is it anything that could be carried?
We have a referral from the planning board for the subdivision at 509 Park Street.
Okay.
They were supposed to go tonight, we can't carry that.
Okay.
But I think you'll be happy. I looked at the plans briefly, and I think you'll be happy with the plans, because
Okay.
they, I think, preserve everything you asked them to preserve,
Oh,
okay? So it shouldn't take that long.
all right.
Okay.
Famous last words.
That was the kiss of death, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. All right. So, thank you. So, now we move to new business, and our first application is application 2023-22, 491 Valley Road for total demolition. Giovanna Intili is the owner. There you go, okay. So could you step forward with, do you have an attorney or? An architect. Okay, and come forward and our attorney will swear you in?
Just so you know, I have all of the documents that you submitted on that laptop connected to the projector. If you want to present anything for the board to see as part of your presentation, just let me know and I'll call it up and then you can access it. Okay?
So just to note, this is an application for total demolition. If you sit down, our attorney will swear you in, and then I'll introduce the application.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide on this application to the commission tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And the owner, you're the owner,
I am the owner.
right?
And I brought with me an architect, Johnny Intili.
Okay.
State
I-
licensed architect,
How do you spell his last name?
same as mine,
Oh, perfect.
Intili.
There.
I'm her father.
Yes.
State licensed architect.
Okay, well, welcome. So this, as I said, this is a application for total demolition. The subject property is located at 491 Valley Road. It is between Gordonhurst Avenue and Wildwood Avenue. It was surveyed as part of the 1982 Preservation Montclair Township-wide historic survey effort and was identified that time as possible for National Register eligibility. The survey form states the following. It is a simple three-bay vernacular residence. It's one of two on the east slope of Valley Road, which is formerly the old Speartown Road. The applicant proposes to totally demolish the existing house. The statement of need identifies structural unsoundness, interior dimensional concerns, and general lack of maintenance by previous owners as the primary reasons for requesting approval of a total demolition. And tonight, after you give your testimony, we also have the board engineer who went to look at the house, Mr. Peter Tenkate. Okay, so he will also speak. Did you receive his report?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. So we have a matrix for the outlining the demolition, and there are certain requirements that need to be satisfied. So I'm just going to go through them quickly. The complete photographic record of exterior elevations, you've satisfied that. We're in receipt of that. Statement of the need or purpose for the proposed total demolition, you've satisfied that. You have requested a waiver for a claim of no other alternative to total demolition, which you'll speak to tonight. You've satisfied the written and pictorial record of the building's history. You've requested a waiver for the archaeological study of the property, and you've requested a waiver for preservation of salvage of architectural elements. We do have review criteria for total demolition, and I know all of our commissioners are familiar with that. So just quickly, I want to go over with total demolition to demolish this historic structure. The following matters shall be considered: the architectural, the historical, cultural, and aesthetic significance, its use, its intended use, and the use for which the building, structure, object, or site was originally designed, and the feasibility of the continuation of its design use. It's important to the township, and the extent to which its historical or architectural value is such that its removal will be detrimental to the landmark district and/or to the public interest. The extent to which it is of old, unusual, or uncommon design, craftsmanship, texture, and material. The extent to which its retention would promote business, create new positions, attract tourists. The probability impact of its removal upon the ambience of the landmark district. The structural soundness and integrity of the building structure of the building, and the economic feasibility of its restoration or rehabilitation as to allow for its reasonable use. The threat to the public health and safety as a result of deterioration. The technological feasibility of structural rehabilitation, and the interference with charitable purposes of any nonprofit or charitable organization if total demolition is not permitted. So I've just read all of the criteria, and there's certain criteria that you've stated that it doesn't apply to your situation. So with that, do you have pictures or?
I can bring up the pictures.
So what we'll do is you'll state your case, the commissioners will ask questions, our historic consultant will go over the report that was written, which you also have, and then we'll have a discussion, and then we'll vote, okay?
Okay.
So, you want your photo log?
Yes, please.
You can present this.
They changed my setup of the Adobe, so where I used to find things like view, full screen. Full screen mode, there you go. Unless you want to zoom it in.
Okay, good evening. My name is Giovanna Intili. I'm the current owner of 491 Valley Road. This is the existing photos of the home, which I am requesting total demolition for. And the reasons being is because I'm claiming that the home is in disrepair. It is not. It could have structural issues, and it did not have. Oh, okay, thank you. It was not upkept in the past couple of months, at least from what I gathered from the zoning board and also the code enforcement official. There's a lot of deterioration to the home interiorly and exteriorly, and I will try and zoom, I guess, into some of these pictures if I can.
Excuse me, Ms. Intili, I have a question.
Yes.
You have photographs, and I just want to make sure that what you're showing the commission has already been submitted to the commission.
Yes, I submitted this on July 6th.
Okay, there's nothing new in here.
Nothing new is
Okay,
in here.
thank
The
you.
only new documents that you might have received were the reports from the HPC and also
Okay.
from the
I just have to mark it
engineer.
as an exhibit if it's new, but
Okay.
nothing new.
No,
Okay.
nothing new.
Thank you.
So I have submitted the copies of the pictures, which I believe that you have in front of you, but as you can see, this is the home that's, you can see it from Valley Road. It has a long driveway, and then you get to the front of the home, which everything is very overgrown, so you can't really see great details of the architecture, but there's a front porch or roof that sits over an existing wooden stairway that leads up to the front door of the home. There's currently, there is a railing, but everything is very unstable with the wood steps going up. And you can see just from these small photos that the exterior clapboard is deteriorating very much. Then there are other pictures from other angles of the home. We have single pane windows, openings to the exterior clapboard where you can see exposed structural elements or framing of the home. And then we have an existing dug well and another side of the exterior of the home. And then you can see also the property and that it goes far back, and then there's an existing shed. So when you walk into the home, you're immediately presented with the stair going up to the second floor. Currently, this stair is only about 30 or 31 inches wide. It's very unstable. The handrail wobbles as you're walking up, so you have to be very careful. You can see visible evidence of mold, holes in the walls, areas where paint is chipping off the walls. Could be that the paint is lead-based paint, and so therefore it could be a health hazard. Then there's more just holes in the ceilings, other holes in the walls, and water damage and mold, visible mold. Oops, I'm sorry. It's a sensitive mouse. This is the living room, the current living room. There's holes in the ceiling. It has an existing hardwood floor, some cracks, the single pane windows, and then you can see more into another sort of dining family room space where you see deteriorating walls with visible mold still. This is the existing family, possibly dining room space. Along the floor, there's buckled floorboards where we were able to see with the engineer that came to see the house and make his own report as to whether or not there were structural issues with the home, that the existing fireplace is sort of pushing on the foundation below, and it's coming through the ceiling a little bit. So that's where we're having a little bit of the buckling with the floors, the floorboards. Then this is it's an extension of the home. We don't believe it's an existing or original to the actual home of the kitchen, and the ceiling is all deteriorated. A lot of it came down. Then we have the upstairs where you can see issues with the ceiling again, the width of the stair, the width of the hallways. The ceiling height is very low up on the second floor. It's about 82 inches, I believe. That's all part of in the letter that I had written to the board. Then we have an existing bathroom, and this is the first bedroom. It's only about 79 square feet. Again, the ceiling height is very low. The windows are not big enough or would not act as egress windows in the case that somebody would be living here and sleeping in the bedroom. The same thing with in this front bedroom, very small. And then there's a third bedroom. As you go down into the basement, the stair is very narrow, again, measuring about 30 inches wide. It doesn't have the appropriate head clearance when you get to the bottom of the steps. It's less than 80 inches. And we've had issues that we've noticed with flooding in the basement. There's not an existing concrete floor, it's just a dirt floor. And then the ceiling height in the basement is 80 inches or less. And then we have an attic where you can see that potentially the roof was replaced, but it's just the existing attic as it is. So I'm asking for total demolition on the home because of the current condition would not lend to be able to be renovated in a way that a current family could potentially live here. And I'm nervous, that there are a lot of issues with the interior finishes, with the walls, what we can't see that could potentially be a structural issue, it could be a hazardous issue, it could be an environmental issue, and unless we were to start taking some of the materials down off the walls, we wouldn't really have much of an idea of what we were working with at the moment. When I had purchased the house, I did not know that it was inventoried as a potential historical property. I looked on the zoning map because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't in a historical district in Montclair, and I also wanted to make sure that I would be able to do some sort of renovations based on the zoning location and the existing structure and the setbacks and how big the property was, and that is what made me make the decision to purchase the home. When I came to the zoning department to ask if I could get an application for total demolition, that's when I learned from the planning board assistant that this home was inventoried as a potential historical property, which I was unaware of. And then he gave me the parameters as to how to go about to apply for total demolition of the home. And that's why I'm here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Does your dad have anything?
Yeah, I would like to add something to Giovanna's presentation.
Please.
And as I mentioned, I'm a state licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, New York, some other states, but I just carry my New Jersey license at this time because
What is your, I didn't catch your name before.
Gianni, Gianni. Last name is Intili, Intili, and my firm is GI Studio, GI Design Studio,
Okay.
LLC, in Woodland Park, New Jersey. So what I would like to say is introduce myself, that I'm a state licensed architect with a background. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Fairleigh Dickinson University. I have a master's degree in architecture from Ohio State University. I come from Rome, Italy, and the first place I came from, Italy, in 1970 was here, Montclair. I lived in Walnut Parkway for a while, went to Montclair High School, then I moved nearby, to a town nearby, Little Falls. And I carry with me, my background, my cultural inheritance from living in a city like Rome. So I do appreciate historical architecture and arts, artifacts, ruins, and so on and so forth, and which are pretty much like the city of Montclair as well, for its heritage that I have to provide. I'd like to say that when we looked at this house, of course, I did look at it with Giovanna before she purchased it. So we had no idea at that time that it had the potential to be eligible as a historical monument of sorts. So we had no idea for that. And basically, I know from the beginning, I said, there's nothing much that you can do here. It's a very tiny house. And she wants to move, and she's coming from a bit of a larger house compared to this one here, to Montclair. And Montclair has a lot to offer in many ways. So basically, what she neglected to mention is that, and I think for the reports as well, and I know this in one report from, I think it was from Connolly Icky. But in any case, as far as a report, is that she claimed that there is 1,100 square feet of living space. Well, according to our current codes, building codes, regulations, the second floor does not meet the requirements of living space. It's substandard. The areas of the bedrooms are small, do not meet with today's standards for a bedroom. The bathroom will never allow for modification for the regulation for handicap accessibility or anything of the sort. The stairs, more than anything else, the rise and run is dangerous. I climbed those stairs myself, and I was scared. So, rehabilitation of the stairwell is required. The making 3 bedrooms perhaps into 2 bedrooms as a potential, and perhaps put a decent bathroom on the second floor. But by all means, nowadays too, we like to have a powder room on the first floor as well. If I'm going to visit my daughter or my son-in-law, I don't want to go out to the second floor to go to the bathroom and wash my hands. So there is a lack of space there. And I think that the architect's report of Connolly and Icky is stated on page 2, and I'm going to quote on it, is that the building served as a single-family residence until it was vacated. And there appears to be no substantial reason why after renovation it will not serve that purpose again. And I just stated the purpose. After the renovation, we will not have three bedrooms up there. We will not have we will lose at least 1 bedroom to adjust the bathroom and reorganize every single rooms in the house. Okay. The applicant notes a few conditions that makes this building substandard to current code requirements, but the applicant as the New Jersey Rehabilitation Subcode, it could renovate spaces to overcome these code issues without negatively impacting the exterior form and feature of this subject property. Well, the applicant will not have the advantage of using the Rehabilitation Subcode of New Jersey because the extent of the project will exceed the 50% requirements in order to be below bringing the house up to new standards, new codes. As such, once we exceed that 50%, which definitely is going to happen, there is no question as far as rehabilitating the stair, which is dangerous. There is also a considerable amount of improvements that needs to be done, even on the second floor with the bedrooms, which do not have egress windows. So, if I was an architect for any client, I will recommend to bring everything up to code, to have egress windows, so in case there is a fire, somebody can get out. And we have very specific codes for those. I often argue by the fact that the firemen are going to come in with an axe and just take that window out, right? But the code said that no, you have to have a certain amount of opening so you can get somebody out in case of an emergency. So we don't have that. And we have so many issues that right now, even the house doesn't have any insulation. So just maintaining the house, either during winter or cool during summer, it's a major expenditure. I would like to see, yes, once we abide to an energy compliance program, but even the structure itself will not allow us to bring us up to the standards of nowadays. The 2x4s will not give us enough for the insulation that is required. And nowadays, we need insulation both interior and exterior. So we need cavity and continuous insulation on the outside. And for the roof nowadays, we're way up to a point where those rafters were not able to receive that. So there is a lot of issues why a program of renovating this house, it's unfeasible. Many aspects of what I just described. I think that the house, in its original historical content, that of this tripartite elevation, it's what it's, what it really is a particular front elevation aspect to it. The rear addition for a kitchen that was put in, about 110 square feet, was added. But all the other rooms on the first floor are very tiny. So we're talking about a total of 500 square feet in the original house. So the original house, actually, per se, it's that footprint. The front porch was added at some point, as noted by Connolly and Icky, and also by Boswell, not Boswell, by, let's see, it's by Tommy Shibilia, the Montclair Historical Preservation Commission, reporting on even the porch and the columns to the porch were added later. So again, if we were to take those out, if we were to take the back of the house out, okay, so we're left with about 500 square feet on the first floor, and the second floor, we can't really call it 500 square feet because under all circumstances, is not livable space because of the ceiling heights. So it's very difficult to just say, okay, let's renovate this. But more than anything else, is the quality of living. You know, can anyone live in there? It's very difficult for me to comprehend. And I worked on historical farmhouses up in Mawa and up to down to historical shacks in Shibano. I did work in New York City for historical buildings under the LPC, Landmark Preservation Commission, but it was a program for replacing all the windows of a building in Seoul, or storefront renovation in Ladies Miles on 6th Avenue and 20th Street, and also doing additions on the roofs, which were not visible from the street. So, not an expert in historical, architectural historical preservation and rehabilitation, but I appreciate the history. I do visit nationally many of the historical sites. You know, I even, when I photographed the color of a brick of the Day Mansion in Totowa, Wayne, in order to use the color for a brick that we could use for a brick in New York City of historical importance. So I am sensitive to the issue of this particular property and this particular structure that is there, although the structure is not livable as far as I'm concerned. You know, one of the issues is that Giovanna, we talked about is how can we mitigate this without taking it down? And if it's an important structure, perhaps we should preserve it and keep it as a museum or something. You know, and I think Giovanna would be more than happy to relinquish this responsibility, if that is the case, of destroying an historical important structure and work something out in that direction. That is why there were some comments as far as the application. Perhaps she can keep something. You know, she would like to have a total demolition. So, you know, we're not again, 100% decided that even though we put in the decision of demolish with the application, and that's why, being here, perhaps we can get a sense, get a feel how these particular boards feel about this property. I mean, if it has that importance, then we'll discuss.
Okay, thank you, thank you. That concludes your testimony then?
To this point, unless there are any questions.
I was a bit unclear when you were talking about the subcode, if you could repeat what you
Okay.
were saying?
So if you were to call on me to come to your house and say, I need to renovate or put an addition to my house, right? The amount of renovation that will be done would have to be done with a certain percentage, 50% of the house. Once we exceed that 50%, we can no longer abide to the exemptions to the codes that we can get from the New Jersey Rehabilitation Subcode. So basically, if certain areas do not meet the code, because we're renovating an old structure to a certain percentage, we don't have to bring it up to code. Okay. There are some issues as a responsible professional, state license, that I will not abide to when it comes to safety and health consideration of the structure per se. So as I mentioned before, God forbid there is a fire, and we haven't addressed that particular issue. Okay. I mean, regardless of my liability that is involved as a professional, it's my conscience. Would I tell anybody, don't change the windows, don't put egress windows, don't change the stairs? With a 30-inch stair, you can hardly carry a mattress up the stairs, let alone turn it around up there. And that's with a client. Now we're coming to my daughter, I'm going to be more protective in that particular area. I want to make sure that it is a safe place, it's a healthy place to live in.
Yeah,
And so at that point, this house requires more than 50% renovation, more. And I will say,
Can you explain that further, Mr. Intili? Oh, sorry, Mr. Ryan.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm sure you don't have the reference of that subcode that references that 50%. I've never heard that number before, and I'm looking through the rehab subcode right now, and I don't see any reference to the 50%.
no, I don't have it with me, but
Okay.
I'll be
But it's
happy to provide.
in the rehab subcode?
Yes, yes. Additional circle. I may be wrong as far as number, but we will exceed that number anyways.
Yeah.
And as I said, we'll be like, other than taking it completely down, then you're what, up to 90% rehabilitation, 80, 85?
Do you mean the current structure, or do you mean
Current
adding on, or do you mean adding on an
That's
addition?
without adding on or anything.
But in the current structure, when you say exceeding 50% renovation, does that mean modifications, or does that simply mean, I guess, more aesthetic changes? Like,
Not only aesthetic, but, items that need to be brought up to local codes, like energy compliance.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, we have 2x4 walls. We'd have to increase that depth somehow to the exterior.
I'm sorry.
So it's the exterior, interior walls as a whole that would have to be renovated. And so you take that wood plank in there, take it out, putting it back in, and do all that work. So all the interior walls, floors, ceilings, even the basement. We have provisions nowadays that the basement needs to be insulated as well. So not having a floor is not energy compliant. So even when we pour new concrete slab on the floor, we put insulation underneath. Okay, so that this way our energy is not being affected by the ground below.
But I think our question is, and I appreciate where you're coming from. We need to kind of separate those issues. But in terms of the rehabilitation, let's say hypothetically, you just wanted to get this house back to its original condition so that it was stable, that someone could actually live there. Right now we saw the report from our engineer, it doesn't have insulation, there's no plumbing, there's no working electrical system, the floors have deteriorated, there's potential mold. So let's say you just wanted to rehabilitate those deficient items, would that still exceed that 50% threshold?
Sure. And also the second floor too.
And the
Again,
second- Yep.
second floor.
So
is
not even bringing it to code,
Not
just
even, not even
rehabilitating
talking
it,
about the
it's gonna
second
hit that
floor, which
threshold.
would have to be raised.
Mhm.
Okay, the existing height doesn't allow for it. I am surprised that in the past, somebody gave a certificate of occupancy to this house as a residential house for somebody to live in.
But that would be based on exemptions, correct? Because a home that was potentially built 150 years ago is not going to necessarily have was not going to be built with the same standards as today.
Right,
So that would be
right.
why they received a certificate of occupancy. Yeah.
So there were some extensions in place, that I don't know. We haven't looked into that. Right.
Okay. so
Can I just
thank you.
comment on the rehabilitation subcode?
Yes.
Just quickly. First of
Please.
all, some of these numbers relate to whether things can be quantified as reconstruction or rehabilitation or alteration or change of use. Change of use is something different. They're not proposing a change of use. The reason for the rehab code is because there's all these old buildings out there that don't meet modern code, okay? And the code basically says, if you don't change the use, and you conform to using certain materials on things that you are changing, you don't have to conform to certain modern-day requirements. So I understand it doesn't meet today's code, but the rehab code says you don't have to do that. As far as insulation, if you open up a wall, you got to put in insulation. But it certainly wouldn't meet the energy requirements of the modern-day code. In fact, most houses in Montclair don't meet
Probably
the
wouldn't.
energy code. So,
Okay,
whatever. So
thank you.
just-
Thank you for the clarification. That's really what I wanted to get at while
But,
you were.
what I wanted to mention is that quality of living is very important.
Right. So at this point, do commissioners feel that they want to question our applicants now, or should we listen to the engineer's report?
I would like to hear, before we get to the engineer's report, the testimony on the waiver requests.
Okay, that might be, all right.
So the first waiver request was the requirement of good faith efforts to sell the building, and you spoke earlier that, if this was something that the commission felt strongly about preserving, you would look for a potential buyer, to take on the property. And I just want to hear from the applicant or Mr. Intili, thoughts on why those efforts weren't done prior to the application as required by the ordinance.
We just learned about this. We just learned about this when Giovanna was looking into getting information about the property and the procedures for building a new home there.
We respect that, but there is a concern of us setting a precedent where we waive a requirement like this, and potentially another applicant can come to us, perhaps with less noble, character, and say that they were unaware, and then we would have to be faced with the precedent that we allowed it in this situation. So our concern would be, if we were to waive that requirement now, we would have to do that in the future. So I think we would need
So we need a justification. Why in
justification.
this instance,
Yeah.
when you did learn about it, why didn't you attempt to sell the property, find someone that would want to take it on, and then file the application?
Well, My answer would be that I wanted to speak to the board to see what you would grant me. Like, because if you had told me that I can only, if I have to keep the existing style, let's not even talk about like the existing structure, because everything is deteriorating. So I would have to take stuff down and then re-put up the same material, right? Like, but I don't think that I would be able to keep what is actually there, except maybe the foundation walls, the stone foundation walls. But if I had to keep existingly, if like what is existing, that structure, that look, the size, but then add on to it, if I would be able to add on to it in order to be able to create a home that is comfortable, like livable to today's standards, like what's comparable to the other homes in the neighborhood, the adjacent homes, then, you know, I would study that further. And I would be happy to do that. I did not want to take on the exercise of trying to sell this home without having an exact understanding of what I was allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. Because I think, you know, that's going ahead of myself. Like, if there was something that was granted to me that I could, you know, come to an agreement with you about, then I wouldn't try and sell the home. I think that the home is, I like the property.
That would
I
only
like-
be for total demolition.
That's
If there, if there were other avenues you wanted to pursue,
Right.
you wouldn't be required to attempt to sell. That's only a requirement for applicants who come before us who want total demolition. And only total demolition,
It clearly says where there's a claim of no other alternative than total demolition.
Okay.
So,
So it sounds like you're open to other alternatives, and that's kind of why we wanted to ask, you know, what the rationale was.
Well, when I went to the zoning department to find out about total demolition, because when I bought the home, it was advertised as a complete tear down. It did not, there was no information about it being a potential historical property. It was just advertised as a complete tear down. So the person that was selling the home probably might have not known that it was a potential historical property. I've never bought in Montclair before, so I did not do the proper research, I guess, because I looked at the zoning map. I did not look at the historical preservation map. I didn't know that it existed. So when I came to the zoning department to ask for a complete demolition, that's when I discovered that it was a potential historical property.
Oh, and that's when you received the historic survey? That's part of this historic survey?
Yes, well, that's when Tommy, the assistant planner, showed me the historical survey.
Okay.
And that's why I, you know, submitted it, I guess, with the application, because I knew it was there at that point. But I didn't receive this when I purchased the home.
Ms. Intili, I have one question. I know Tommy and Richard probably spoke with you that if you keep 50% of the walls, 50% of the structure, then you don't need to get a permit for total demolition.
Like, I don't know how I'm going to keep 50% of this. It's not in, it's in
Okay.
disrepair. That's why I'm saying that it needs
Well,
to be.
that's why, that's one of the things that one of the alternatives is you don't have to tear down the whole building. If you
Yeah.
keep part of it, at least 50%, and you can still add on to it.
Yeah.
It's, the issue is the total, is demolishing the historic structure.
Okay.
The alternative is keeping part of it and adding on to it. Then you wouldn't need I mean, you have to keep at least 50% of the structure and then add on to it. And then you don't need the permit for total demolition. Then you wouldn't be here.
Yeah, then you
So-
wouldn't be here.
So that's, I don't know if that, I assume that was properly explained to you.
Explained to you?
Tommy had mentioned that he thought that I could keep and like that could be a potential thing, keeping 50% of the home. But if I wanted to do total demolition,
You had to come here.
I had to come here. And so that's why I'm,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you're still claiming total demolition?
yes,
Is it fair to say you want to keep your options open?
yes.
Okay.
So,
But I mean, you know, I don't know how, I don't know if you have some sort of answer as to how I would keep the existing 50%.
Well, that's something you have to discuss. So
Yeah.
that,
But
yeah.
in terms of the waiver of the requirement to attempt to sell, or at least show what kind of loss you would suffer if you were to sell, I don't think we've seen, well, I don't want to comment on that until it's time, but we would need a compelling reason to waive that requirement. We actually had a situation recently where it was claimed that there was no alternative and the application was denied, and ended up that they were able to sell the property. So we're very cautious when it comes to such waivers.
Not only sell the property, renovate
Renovate it and make it a
do
beautiful-
everything they said they couldn't do
Yeah.
to it.
Correct, yeah.
And
So
putting an
do-
addition in the back. Yeah, they made it
Yeah.
livable with the addition in the back.
Yeah.
But we can't design, so do you even go down the list,
sure.
Jason?
The next one had to do with the waiver for providing an archaeological study of the property before and/or during total demolition if the property falls within an area demonstrated to have medium or high probability to contain archaeological resources. And if you could just kind of speak to the reason why you feel that that study's not necessary.
Because I don't know if I can do the total demolition, right? So how, sorry, like,
Well, part of that is you're supposed to do these things before it comes to the commission so that we're checking things off and say, all right, well, this is not significant, it has no archaeological significance, therefore we can give you this demolition because we're not concerned. But if we don't have that information, we're hesitant to let you demolish something. So that's why we have these requirements before you come here, so that we can approve a demolition without the risk that we are demolishing something significant. And it's just that, you know, we haven't looked for what it is. So that's why I want to know, you know, is there something that you're aware of that, you know, would make any archaeological significance of little or no probability of being found?
And it's stated here in the matrix. It said that during the hearing, they should provide testimony as to why they're requesting the waiver.
okay.
Perhaps you didn't understand the question,
Yes.
right? Yeah, I think she didn't understand the question for the waiver. And so she will rescind that and have that waiver in place. I mean, you know, if they excavate and find something that is, you know, noteworthy or
So, I mean,
archaeological important,
are
she'll
you,
report that.
okay, so is that something where if we did give you a demolition or an approval of a demolition permit, it would be conditioned on you undertaking the study and submitting a report finding, saying that there's
Yeah.
nothing found? Okay.
I think the same is valid from the other waiver too. You know, to look into possibility of selling it, or moving it out somewhere or something else. It's a possibility to look into, yes.
Just to,
And the same has to do with preservation of elements, architectural elements, salvage. That's something
Right.
that could be a condition if we decide that we would permit demolition. You would undertake that photographic documentation.
Yes.
Okay.
Have we gone through the list then?
Yep, that's the 3 waivers that were requested.
Okay, so at this point, do commissioners want to ask questions of the applicant now, or should we listen to the engineer's report? What would be
I'd like to
more
hear the
beneficial?
Yeah, let's go for the
report
engineering.
and,
and-
And then we'll listen, we'll
And
hear from
Margaret Hickey.
Margaret Hickey.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, P10K from Boswell Engineering, we submitted our report yesterday. I can read it into the record if you'd like. I mean, pretty, speaks for itself. But would you,
I mean, it's been submitted, the applicant has it. I don't think we need to read it in depth, but,
Right.
you know, if you just want to provide comments based on what they've testified to and whether some of these items have been satisfied,
And the conclusion,
The
which
conclusion,
which
yeah.
is the last
Well,
paragraph.
on the conclusion, I'm going to defer to the architects if they have better knowledge of the rehabilitation code than we do. We do feel it's a significant amount of cost and work to renovate the house, to restore the house, make the requires of repairs to maybe not even bring up the code, but to bring it to structurally sound condition. There are holes in the siding, and there is water damage. The interiors are deteriorating with many holes. The finishes have stains. We noticed that the hardwood floors are buckled and probably not salvageable. And as it was mentioned, the hearthstone has been is sinking because it's displaced through the floor movement. There's concerns about mold and lead paint. We do note that the timber framing is in fair condition with minor deterioration. We couldn't see everything inside the walls, but what we did see is there's walls. The basement walls are in fair but need repointing. No impervious basement floor. We couldn't get underneath the house where the kitchen was because there's this crawl space, I believe. And the existing roof appeared to be fair, and no signs of current leaks. Electrical service is definitely out of unusable as in its current condition. And the water lines removed from the house, and we're not sure if the service coming in has lead in it or not, but most likely it does, due to the age of the property. As stated, there's no insulation, and we also note that the ceiling heights are less than the minimum current requirements, and it was discussed about the bedroom windows do not have the minimum fire egress dimensions, and that the stairs are very narrow.
Mr. Ten, Kate, in your opinion, is it structurally unsound?
In its current condition, yes.
My follow-up question, specifically related to the stone foundation and the timber framing, which you said, was in decent condition. In your opinion, could those be rehabilitated and incorporated into a new structure?
The foundation would probably have to have a structural report to get through to provide to the building code official to say that that's reusable. That would depend on a detailed structural report by the builder's architect. The walls would have to be probably increased to 6-inch studs for insulation. Whether you keep the clapboard on the outside, whether you can marry them together, those are definitely cost issues that you would have to take that into consideration.
Okay. But it's fair to say, even if you wanted to do that, the interior has to be completely gutted to be habitable.
It's our opinion, yes.
You said the foundation needs to be repointed, not replaced, is that correct? If it were
It has to
repointed,
be repointed.
if it were repointed, how would that impact the structure? Would it make it more structurally sound once the repointing were done?
Yes. What we don't report here is, and I'm not sure how that would fall within getting a building permit, there doesn't appear to be a footing to the foundation. So many of these are.
No footing?
We don't report on that. My professional went out and saw it, didn't report on that. I could get back to you on that. But many of these houses at this age don't have footings. They're just built on, they were built on the ground.
Is it in jeopardy of collapse? How structurally unsound are we talking?
I would not say we went in it, so
Yeah.
it's not immediately in danger.
Not immediately, but imminently?
But any house would
Yeah.
fall down.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, what would it take to make it safe to inhabit, in addition to the repointing of the basement, of the foundation?
Well, you've got different aspects. One, you got the basement walls, and then you got the structure above it. So each one would have different criteria.
Would it have to be torn down to be made safe, or are there, I know you can throw money at anything, but I'm saying,
Right.
is it unfeasible to make the structure safe?
I don't think it's unfeasible, no.
Yeah. And not, would it
Well,
take an exorbitant cost to make it?
Well, it would be very,
Because in here you report that it would be about the same as demo, correct?
yes.
Be about the same to make it safe.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you did a detailed structure evaluation of the footing, and I don't know what the current building code would require to allow a stone wall, basement walls, if they didn't have footings,
Mhm.
how that would be viewed in by the building code official as far as giving a permit to build on top of that.
Sure.
That would have to be researched further.
I think we
I
would-
don't have the answer to that.
I think we would request that information. Can we request that information, Janice?
Yeah, I assume it
Yeah.
could be reinforced.
I would, yeah, you could reinforce it. You
Okay.
could put a cradle alongside of it and support it,
Okay.
be all hand dug inside and like that. Yeah, I mean, there's,
I think there's multiple ways to do it.
Multiple ways to,
there are ways to do it.
Okay.
Again, the question is at what cost?
I have a couple questions. Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, Mr.
ahead.
Tenkate, before we listen to Margaret Hickey?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Did you see any cracks in the foundation?
Yeah, that's my
Yeah, well,
question.
when you repoint, you're seeing the cracks in the foundation. So, yes.
And it's a stone foundation?
Repointing
But
generally
you're-
means to me the grouting
The
between the
cracks,
stones.
yeah, the grouting. Yeah, repointing.
Okay, but
is-
you have seen cracks through the actual
Well, yeah,
stone
But the cracks
pieces?
follow the stones,
Mhm.
so
Okay.
it's not like a poured foundation where you see a vertical crack.
Got it. And did you evidence that they were the cracks were a different size at the top versus the bottom? Or they were just cracks? in
Just
it?
cracks.
Okay. And in terms of the wood members, the framing that you said was fair, and the roof rafters, did you observe any cracks? Did you observe any water damage that would require members to be replaced?
I would say there's selective members to be replaced, but not,
Okay.
didn't appear to be.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions for Mr. Tenkate? No? All right, Margaret.
So you want me to just summarize or respond?
A
little bit of both.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just one point of clarification. So whether the building was deemed historic or not, I think you would have had to come before, just because it's more than 50 years old. So that's a regulation in the thing. So I did look at the building. I'm actually familiar with the area since we've done some studies up in that location. And I do find that, I think upon further research, you will find that the building is older than 1900. Particularly now, looking at the ashlar brownstone foundation is a real clear indication that we're talking 19th century, but we would need to do more map research, which is limited up in that location. But I also think, given the age of the building, there may be a potential for archaeological findings associated with the farming activities. Now, depending on how close any outbuildings would have been to the site, maybe at a minimum privy, or maybe some barns or stuff like that. But I do think that we will find that the building is associated with a larger farm area, and that the 1920s buildings around it, the houses, probably were part of a subdivision once Speartown became part of Upper Montclair, and the area became more commuter suburb. So one of the things that Montclair does not have a lot of, to talk about its early history, and it has a very strong and deep early history associated with Dutch settlement or American Dutch settlement. I think, this speaks to that history, and like I said, there's not a lot left since suburban development was so pervasive, right, at the turn of the 20th century. In terms of the building itself, I mean, I did not go in it, but we are quite familiar with this type of building type. We are very familiar with brownstone foundations that have no footings, where there's not large spans on this building. Having a building without a footing that has a deep basement like that is not typically a problem unless you're adding load to it, like a significant load to it. What we recommend, and granted, there are conditions on the inside that need to be remedied. With regard to fire egress, there's nothing that says you cannot replace the existing windows to be ones that meet fire code. You could just change the opening and either use a different type of double hung, or you use a casement that then looks like a double hung. So there's a lot of options out there for how you address that issue. A lot of stairs in Montclair houses are not wide. There's ways to reinforce stairs fairly easily. And also, we have no purview on the interior. So you are free to kind of make a lot of renovations to the interior without necessarily, as noted, impacting the exterior form. And really, the only elevations that we have to deal with, if it was like in a historic district, would be the three visible sides. So there's a lot of options for the back. There's also options to put a sympathetic addition to the side. So my main concern is that this loss of this particular building, again, speaks to an early history that we do not have a lot of remaining left in Montclair. And I do believe, based on what we're seeing, that it has a tremendous amount of architectural integrity with regard to the siding and the trim. That I realize that porch has been modified, but there probably was historically a porch on that building. The roof form is very distinctive. The fenestration pattern is distinctive, but it also has a lot of potential with regard to, if we keep the exterior form, to be able to add. You've got a deep lot. Like I said, you could put sympathetic additions to the side. So I think the applicant would be best served if they could probably go relook at some of these issues and see what other potential there might be, rather than kind of say it's a total loss. Given, like I said, its setting, its history, and the integrity of the building on the whole, but recognizing that our limitations are really to the exterior form. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Does that conclude your?
Other than yes.
Before you respond to some of the other comments, I had a question on the period of significance and the potential for archaeological findings. In your report, you said it's likely that it dates back to 1890s or even back to the 1870s, and that's towards the end of that agricultural period of significance in Speartown. Is there a possibility, and has there been any, in your research, any indication that this house could have been a reproduction of those farmhouse styles, kind of like the first wave of the suburbanization?
Not based on the foundation and the detailing. There's always kind of a different appearance to it. It may even be earlier, but based on looking at some of the... all right, so one of the problems with the building is it is highly vernacular. It's not a high-style building that you can kind of point a date to without actually really taking apart the framing and seeing if it's what the mortise and tenon and all that kind of stuff. So it could be earlier than 1870, but I figured a safe time period at a minimum.
So you've got a high degree of confidence that this was an actual farmhouse?
Yes, I do.
Could I speak to that? Because I asked the librarian to pull the deed, to do the deed search at the Montclair very quickly. And there is indication that that property was owned by the Garabrands, which is a Dutch family that was settled in Upper Montclair. And the house, the brownstone farmhouse that's a bit to the south, was owned by the Spears. So that ties into exactly what Margaret is talking about in terms of the importance of what this structure, the house, means to the Dutch settlement and the agricultural Dutch settlement of Upper Montclair. So that's why I wanted to, interject that now with your question. Okay, that's all right. So now we're ready for questions from our commissioners. So we shall ask. Yeah. Nick, would you like to start?
Sure. I mean, just in general, I think a lot of the building code stuff is a little bit of conjecture for this meeting because the subcode is very, very murky in terms of what's qualified as an ordinary repair versus a rehabilitation versus a replacement. I think, if we're really going to go down that route, a code consultant would probably be a good resource. They do have people with the state that know exactly what qualifies as what. I think if the framing and the foundation's in relatively good shape, most of the rest of the work is cosmetic and or ordinary repairs, like window replacement, siding. The foundation, we touched on, there's a lot of things that could be done just inboard of the foundation, a couple concrete piers every 10 or 12 feet.
With all due respect, she's not going to live in the basement, okay? She's going to live on the first floor and the second floor. And the quality of life is very important, okay? Would you live in that place? Ask yourself, okay? It's only 500 square feet, living space, okay?
Well, I would consider putting an
I have to
addition
duck.
on the rear or the side, and then you reconfigure the entire layout of the interior to get more standard size rooms.
And lift the roofs.
I don't think you have to lift the roof.
I don't think we are here to design it. I can imagine all sorts of things, as keeping that volume, taking out the second floor, have it a great space as part of another addition. And
I know, I
you're
thought
going to
of
build
that
a whole
too,
new
yeah.
house anyway. We're not here to design,
Right.
but you haven't convinced me it can't be.
No, I thought about it too. I was having a vestibule to something else.
Yeah.
Right? So you have this two-story vestibule
Yeah,
come into it. But it's a very expensive vestibule, very expensive. And so if we want to keep the integrity of the structure, why got it inside? Let's keep it the way it is. Let's turn it into a place that people can visit. That, it's important to the historical development of this particular region back in the 19th century. If that's the case, we'll be out of here. My daughter will be out. She can give the house to and sell the property to the township of Montclair or Essex County, if anybody wants to take it over. She may be amenable to that, yeah. She can develop it, basically.
Well,
We understand that.
we understand, but Nick, do you have any
questions?
further questions?
No, I just think in general, we'd be curious to see what you've looked at in terms of alternatives to renovating within the existing envelope and putting an addition on the rear. I mean, it's very feasible on this house. It's a big lot. The proportions of the main house are good. Maybe the individual room sizes are small, but if you do an addition on the back, you don't need to cram 3 bedrooms on the second floor in the original part of the house. It could be 1 bedroom and a bathroom, or 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. I think there's a lot of possibility to
Right, and
keep the
again,
structure.
these are suggestions. We're not here to help to design it. So, John?
just have one question. Oh, sorry. The statement of need that you wrote, Giovanna, it's that third paragraph. It says, "I recently purchased this home in February 2023 with understanding the house would have to be, at a minimum, completely renovated, but preferably totally demolished." So at that point in time, you were thinking that it would minimally need to be renovated.
Yes, with the hope to put an addition on the back, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But, you know, when I was trying to do this research about doing the total demolition, I didn't, you know, quite understand how far I could go with renovating the property in terms of what it looked like on the exterior as well, like what I would have to preserve. You know, can the materials still be utilized? I don't know. You know, we would have to go into a further study of that. But if they couldn't, then I would have to reapply the same type of material, or, you know, am I able to use some sort of building exterior material that is more durable to what they've created today, you know?
We're only here for total
Yeah,
demolition, right?
Yeah. We don't
We're not
view
in-
materials.
We're not here, we can't
No, I
really
understand
tell
that.
you.
This
No,
is
we
just
can't
my-
tell you that.
We can't tell you
okay.
that.
No, we can't. So,
We would encourage you to do that.
yeah, absolutely.
But there are certain design guidelines.
But clearly,
right, that they
that's your
can follow.
option.
Yeah,
But that's
What
not his.
material you
Yeah.
use, as long as the wall stays there.
it's out of our purview a bit.
I don't have any other questions.
I think most of
Mike.
my questions were answered already. Yeah.
And my question was along John's line, that when you bought the house, you stated that you didn't understand this historical significance to it. And I think my question is, how because we have to vote on whether it can be demolished or not. And are you willing to work with the existing structure that's there with an addition, or, you know, I guess an addition off the back to keep is that something that you would do?
Yes, I would do that if that's all I'm allowed to do.
What do you mean
If-
that's all you're allowed to do?
Because if I wouldn't be able to put an addition on the home because of the historical preservation, then my only option would be to try, I guess, either try and sell it or then totally demolish
But you've
it.
never been prevented from putting an addition on.
Right.
I was just going about the
Your thought process.
the procedure from this as the beginning, like, you know.
Right.
So if I was not able to do complete demolition and I have to contain the existing property and try and work with it, at that point, you know, I would study that further, yes.
Yeah.
But because this was I guess, like, inventoried as a potential historical property, we were not sure if this was actually a historical property or not. It was not registered with the state, it was not registered with the county, it's not registered with Montclair. So I was unsure of how far I could go if I could demolish
But it's
this home.
deemed an historic property, and it's deemed historic because there's a survey form. Are you saying that it's not historic?
No, I was not sure.
I
if
think
it-
we call it potentially historic in all our
The reporter
documents.
says eligible.
Or potential. It
But-
doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't say that it is historical, meaning that I don't have an option at all.
Well,
Okay. Do you have another?
No, I was going to make some comments, maybe
Well,
to
that's
help
not-
out, but again, that starts to begin designing, and I
Right.
don't, you know, I'm supposed to be doing that.
I'm kind of mystified that you didn't get notice from at least your title company that would say that it was potentially historic. Anyway, I think that, you know, the place is worth.
Does that show up though in title? Because there's nothing gets recorded. It's a zoning.
It's not
Sure, yeah.
recorded in there. Well, we got to figure that one out.
Yeah, I know.
We'll bring it up with the council, make them a quarter.
Right.
Well, I think when the ordinance is updated, we will be notifying all the property owners that they are considered a potentially historic property.
Right, okay.
So, but that wouldn't help a buyer,
No.
because it's not recorded. It's not in the tax office.
Do you have a question?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to get like too far. Can we put it on the tax cards?
Oh, well, that's not,
That's a good suggestion.
it's a good question, and
We've
that's
been
something.
talking about that for-
You can put it on the map, but let's have
Yeah.
a different discussion about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Listen
Yeah.
as a discussion.
Okay.
You can put it on the official map.
So we'll open up for discussion now then. We'll go back to you, Nick.
Yeah. Just reading through some of the criteria items here.
Do you need a
Are we
minute?
doing questions now? or
Yeah.
Just comments.
Just comments.
Deliberations.
Yeah, I mean, based on the report so far by Peter, you know, and considering that we may need a special structural assessment at some point, I'm not convinced that the structural soundness of the building is not there right now. It sounds like the timber framing and the foundation is in a state where it maybe just needs to be minimally rehabilitated. And by minimally, I mean, you don't really need to take any of it down. You know, wall studs can be sistered with thicker wall studs in select locations. The foundations can be reinforced on the inside of the existing wall without having to take down what's around it. I think everything can be threaded with what's there without having to really take anything down. As far as the inside of the house, I mean, I think the photos and visiting the house before buying it speaks for itself. I mean, it's clearly needed the entire interior to be renovated. There is mold, the floorboards, you know, like you say, are in bad condition in certain spots, but those are for the most part cosmetic things. You know, I think it's two different things to say we have to bring the house into code compliance, which is not what you have to do necessarily on a house of this period if you're not changing the use, and then making it comfortable and livable. I think you can do all of that and not have to make it code compliant, you know, once you really get into the weeds on what category, what piece of work goes under, you know, replacement. The stair can be rebuilt in place or reinforced. It doesn't have to be made 36 inches wide. The windows can be replaced so that they do meet egress requirements for today's standards. And if we were looking into additions on the back, you know, the second floor could be reconfigured to get a decent footprint for each bedroom and a closet. So, you know, yeah, those are my main comments. Just
Thank
that
you.
I don't think it warrants, from a safety perspective, total demolition. You know, I think it can be rehabilitated within reason and be made comfortable and safe.
John?
I agree with everything Nick just said, and I would take this as an opportunity to be creative as an architect and an owner, to take what is, I think, a beautiful little structure there. Again, without designing it, I think there's a lot of opportunity to take that and do minimal restoration of that and add on the back without, you know, how you do that is up to you, but to me, I think that's a great opportunity there, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I am sympathetic to your application. I understand that the house has been neglected, and there's certainly a lot of work to be done here. I also am not convinced that it is structurally deteriorated based on, I don't think we've received enough information to determine that it is structurally unsound to the point where it requires total demolition. I also would say, I also agree with the comments of my colleagues, and I would not be comfortable waiving the requirements that you requested, in particular, the attempt to sell the property, given our history on this commission, and the precedent that it might set.
Jason?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add on a substantive level, but procedurally, I do think the fact that, you came here first for the demolition permit, that's usually the last resort. And especially with the waivers that you're requesting, we don't have enough information to really evaluate the ramifications of demolition, especially in light of the fact that this structure and this property has a lot of historical significance for the town, and there are not a lot of similar structures remaining. So I would like to see you guys, like John said, go back and see what can be salvaged. I fully appreciate the fact that it requires a complete renovation. It's just a matter of, all right, well, what can be preserved from the exterior facade? Because that's what we care about. We care about the exterior, what can be viewed, and what we heard from our engineers. There are some elements that can be preserved. So at this point, I don't think that I feel comfortable with just giving a blanket demolition on this. But again, I don't want to foreclose you from coming back. I would recommend a denial without prejudice, give you an opportunity to try and formulate a renovation plan that will work, for your family needs and with your budget. And if at the end of the day, nothing is feasible, come back to us and, ask for a demolition.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I agree with everybody else. I think that this is a great opportunity for good design and to use, salvage whatever you can on this building and keep the look on the outside. An addition would certainly help.
Thank you. And I'd just like to add, I think this has the potential to be a jewel, a real jewel. As Margaret stated, it is a vernacular building, but once you clear away that brush that's in the front of it, that will just stand out. The position of it, I think, is incredible. I think the significance of the families that live there is really significant to the Upper Montclair agricultural. And like I said, I just did a very cursory search, but looked at the 1898 map. There's also a map from 1870. The Garabands were very, very active, as were the Spears and settlers of Upper Montclair, part of the Dutch heritage, which we really don't know that much about. Having said that, I have a friend that lives in a very similar house on Valley Road, a little bit further up, stone basement, and they've lived in that house the way it is, put an addition on the back after about 20 years to enlarge the kitchen, and it's a jewel. People go by that house, and it stands out because it is surrounded by 20th century ranch houses. I lived in my house for, I don't know, we had one bathroom on the second floor. Everybody came over and we went up and down to the bathroom. Our kids used one bathroom. We did put an addition on. We didn't enlarge the kitchen, but we put a family room off the back with a bathroom downstairs. So I am sympathetic to family needs, but I think that this house is important enough historically that certainly the facade should not be taken down. And I think it sounds as though your dad here has a great love of history, and I'm sure that when you do this, it'll really be a jewel.
What's important to me is the quality of life, as I mentioned.
A what?
Quality of life.
Well, that's what we agree. We know.
Agree to make this house is not livable, as I see it. I'm an architect, and I design many houses. Design many additions to this type of house.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I said, hey, let's make this house into a vestibule to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's create this kind of Disneyland facade, right? Where you have this beautiful picture in the front, everything else behind is something else. which is not right neither. It's not. I mean, keep the house the way it is. You know, if there are no other example of this particular architecture around, and this is a jewel, let's keep it this way. I mean, you go to see the Day Mansion not far away.
Right.
You see the utensils that they use. You see the furnishing that they add, the stools. We have nothing here. We have nothing here, and again, as I said, it's dangerous to live in this particular type of house. Okay? I went up and down the stairs a couple times, and I swear to you, I felt the danger of it. Yes, could be rehabilitated, yes, there's no question. But whatever is inside, it'll be gone. You know what I'm saying? So why? You know?
But that's
And
the jurisdiction of this board, it's the exterior of the house.
Okay, so you just look at the box. That's what's inside the box, right? Is
It
that,
goes to the district.
I'm sorry?
It goes to the district and what people see from the street.
Right, but it's also important to keep, I mean, if you want to keep the historical integrity of it. keep
Well,
going.
unfortunately, we could argue that we'd love to talk about the
We would.
interior, but that's not our purview.
Yeah.
Right, right. I mean, look. No, that's my only concern, more than anything else,
Right.
the quality of life. Can you live in this particular type of structure? This day and age is very difficult. I am sorry, I can't imagine going up and down the stairs to go wash my hands in my daughter's house. And then I put something on the outside, a wash fountain. But yes, there is a point that you made as a board, and really appreciate that as far as the creative process of taking something and making something with it. Now, what is economically feasible or not, that's another issue. Okay? Because you're starting with a major expense in acquiring this property with this particular structure, okay? And then making something on top of that. So it's a pretty tall order.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, at this time, I make a motion to deny the total demolition permit without prejudice.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Is it Mr. Graham?
A second.
And then we should vote on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's
Do you want me to call the
second.
roll?
Please.
Yep. Chair Bennett.
Um,
You want me to do you last?
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Rooney,
Yes.
Mr. Reimnitz,
By saying yes, I'm saying.
It's denied.
Deny.
yeah.
Deny-
Without
yes to
prejudice.
deny.
Yes.
Mr. Heinman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Giuliano,
Yes.
and Chair Bennett.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a break, or should we go?
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break and call the next applicant. let them
Okay.
get
We're going to
set.
take a 5-minute break, so if the next applicant wants to come up and get themselves settled at the table. Thank you.
Your Honor.
Thank you. Next up is application 2023-23, 415 Bloomfield Avenue. This is a C of A, correct, Janice?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, C of A, certificate of appropriateness. So the applicant has submitted plans, and then on our desk tonight, we received these are new plans. New plans?
It's just for the signage.
Oh, I'm
Just
sorry.
signage, okay.
Right, just signage details. So 415 rather, Bloomfield Avenue, I'm looking for my notes, is located within the Town Center Historic District and individually surveyed as part of the Preservation Montclair History of Historic Properties. The site sits on the north side of Bloomfield Avenue, and it's circa 1914 commercial building. The building is 3 bays wide and 3 bays tall. The storefront consists of 12 light over 1 panel of wood door with a solid transom. Above the storefront is a sign band with a panel in each of the bays. The roof is a shallow gamble with coating behind the parapet. But the important thing is the 2002 Town Center Historic District nomination report identifies the building as a harmonizing, altered structure. The applicant proposes to remove the existing first floor storefront facade and replace it with new full-height glass panels and doors set in aluminum frames. The existing light fixtures are to remain, but the applicant proposes to upgrade the existing signage to an illuminated LED light. And as I said, the sheets that were on are in front of us when we sat down are details of the signage. So would you please identify yourselves and your relationship to the project, and our attorney will swear you in.
My name is Jennifer Palermo. I'm principal of Palermo Edwards Architecture.
Okay, thank
My
you.
name is Eitan Terra. I'm the owner of the property of
Thank you.
the building.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you will provide on this application to the commission tonight will be the truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
It is.
Okay, so with that, you do have something up. Can you go through what you propose to do to
Sure.
this facade?
Would it be good if I distribute that? We had, did a revision to.
Yeah, so we
Oh.
haven't seen that.
Right, so
Okay,
I have a
this-
bunch of
this could
copies.
be marked A1.
Okay, so these are not,
First page is fine.
okay, it's the second page
The
of
second
what
page.
we've received. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of words here.
Okay. So, you can see over here on our first page, we have. We can see it over here on the first page. We have photos of the existing storefront. I would argue that none of this is original. The doors are not original. The steel beam, I believe, is original, and obviously the brick is original, but pretty much everything here is not original. And so to bring it up to more modern standards, we are looking to replace all of the wood with aluminum storefront to maximize the amount of light we can get in from our storefront windows. We want to replace the doors and signage. So one of the comments on the letter we received, number 1, was referring to we had no bulkhead at the bottom, which I agree with, and we have proposed to have the bulkhead back at about 20 inches and to sort of anchor that floor. And we actually, there's a ramp inside that goes up past the front window anyway, and so this will cover the edge of the ramp. We are proposing 2 9-foot doors. They will be the same width as the existing doors, but they will be 9 feet tall, which will coincide with the header of the first glazed portion of the facade. And then above that will be a transom, which will be spandrel glass, black. The ceiling, if you can see from the elevations, we have a line that the ceiling hits about midway up the transom. And so the spandrel glass will be black and so you won't be able to see sort of above the ceiling and below the ceiling. And then the signage will be surface mounted to the glazing. It in fact will not be illuminated, at least illuminated of itself. We have existing goosenecks that will remain, and that will in fact illuminate the sign in the transom. And that's pretty much.
Okay, thank you.
We have the sign manufacturer here, as well as the storefront installer here as well, if you have any questions about.
Okay, so this is for the facade and signage?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. So maybe we could, sorry, would you like to come up and testify as to the signage? I think we're interested in how it's going to be attached. So just say your name, and Janine will swear you in.
Sure. My name is J.C. Aviles, and I'm at 451 Orange Road. I own Competitive Signs and Graphics here in Montclair. So, you need to be sworn in?
The application tonight to the commission will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Go ahead.
So, we've done a couple of signs in town similarly to what I'm presenting here. Pretty simple and straightforward, very clean look. We did Eagles and Sons many years ago when they opened, especially the signs that are on the bottom part and the glass part. We did the aluminum up on top also, letters, and then the dimensional letters on the glass portion of each one of those panels. And also JP Yoga was done on Bloomfield Avenue. I have some pictures here too, but basically what the sign is going to be is about 3/8 of an inch thick acrylic with gold face. There's going to be a vinyl shadow, like a black shadow, adhered to the glass. So, and then the letters will be adhered to the glass with VHB tape and silicone, which is a very high bond tape that we use, 3M. And that's normally how we adhere all these letters. They're not heavy. And also we're doing vinyl graphics for the bottom 2 windows that you can see in one of the drawings, which also has a black outline on it. And I put all the dimensions there. The glass, actually the transom up above, I spoke to the architect also, and there will not be a molding coming down the middle, so the glass will be joined right there so that the letters can flow right across in the middle, in the center of the glass, so it looks cleaner. That's about it.
Okay, could you just repeat again how it's going to be attached to the transom?
So behind the letters, we use this tape. It's called VHB, which is very high bond from 3M. And then we also use silicone. So before we adhere the letters, we use silicone. So the letters will actually stick to the glass, and then the silicone will also harden and create more adhesion for those letters.
And the Fume has depth to it, those letters?
Yes, 3/8 of an inch.
Okay.
Yes, acrylic.
All right, thank you. So you've explained how you're going to attach it, thank you,
Yeah.
and what the materials are. Thank you very
Yep.
much. Does that conclude your testimony then?
Mr. Aviles, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
the area behind the window graphics, that's going to remain transparent, right? Clear glass.
No,
From the
it's
lower.
the lower,
That I
not
don't-
the top, not the transom.
No, I'm not talking about the transom, I'm talking about the storefront,
Oh.
the windows.
Oh, the ones below.
Yeah, the cigar shop and lounge.
Yeah, those are gonna be cut letters individually.
Cut
with the
letters,
black
and the
outline,
glass
and
will
you
be,
can see through.
I just want to make sure the glass is transparent.
Yep, transparent.
That's
Yep.
what I thought.
That's
Okay.
true. Yep.
Yeah, that's what it says so on here, Janice, new clear glass panels.
That's what I thought, I heard something a little bit different, so.
Oh, okay, all right. So that concludes your testimony, but, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll start with questions then. Why don't we start with you, Steve?
The only question I have is.
Steve, can you turn on your microphone?
Yep. The only question I have, if all the different elevations, the building numbering is in different locations. Maybe you could figure it out, which one, should it be on the doors, should it be on the glass above the doors?
That's a good question.
That's a good point. C415?
Yes, so we have two entrances, right? We've got.
Yeah, but
and
you
they're
have one
identical.
on, you have one on the transom and one on the door.
Yes, well, I would, I believe it would go on the transom, a little
Okay.
lower, closer to the door. Right now, the number, I believe, is on the entrance to the cigar shop. I'm assuming there should only be one number per building. I'm
Say
not
that
sure.
again?
So there's two entrances to the building. One is for the upstairs, and
Right.
one is for the cigar shop.
Right.
There's, it's one address, it's 415. And right now, the building number is on the entrance to the cigar shop.
Okay.
Which is the door to the left?
Yes.
Okay, are you proposing two numbers?
No.
Yeah, that would be confusing.
Yeah,
No,
I,
it would be
it's-
very confusing. That's why we're going to keep it where it is on the left. And so it's shown here on the right, which I apologize. Is,
all right, okay,
Okay.
so that's good catch, Steve.
Confused. No, I had no other questions.
Jason,
No questions.
Mike?
No questions.
I just have one question, perhaps observation or suggestion, I don't know, question, I guess. The upper spandrel glass, black glass, you say, comes together in a joint in the middle, right? Right behind the sign. My concern, I'll ask you, are you concerned that those different planes of glass will look, conceptually, I get it, it's all black, but when things aren't quite in the same plane or slightly moving on you a little bit, it tends to, it's going to break it in half.
We have, there is a, the frame of the storefront. You'll see that the frame goes through the bottom two glass, pieces of glass. It's actually going to run up the back of the spandrel glass and support that joint from the back. You won't see
Got
it
it.
from the
So
front.
does the spandrel glass sit forward of the glass below?
I believe it's in plane. Mr. Storefront, would you like to explain?
Could you please identify yourself?
Sure. My name is Greg Morga, DBA, Source Glass and Metal.
And we'll have you sworn in.
What's your last name?
Morga, M-O-R-G-A.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide on this application to the commission tonight will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess the basic question is the spandrel glass in the same plane as the clear glass?
Yes, it is. It's all in line.
So how does the metal anodized aluminum rise behind? Is there a piece that's missing from that?
No. Well, actually, there's a piece to support it in the back, but where the two pieces meet, there's a silicone joint that holds it together.
Right.
And it's also held together around a perimeter.
So you're not worried about it moving?
Absolutely
on?
not. We do it all the time.
That was my
Sometimes
que-
we do it.
That's my question.
Thank you. Nick?
I don't have any questions. I assume that the sign sizes are just compliant with the ordinance for the square footage for the, the glass area. Other than that, I don't have any other questions.
And thank you. And just to follow up on John's question, would it be feasible to put 3 panels across the top, which would, to your testimony, would mean that there'd be 2 braces behind? And would that make it look, put the 2 seams on either side? Or if you've done this and there's no,
Aesthetically, you mean?
Yes.
How, that would be up to anybody's opinion. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the 2 together are fine. It may fall in line with the vertical tube below. The sight
Okay.
line may look better.
okay, all right. And so you think it'll read as one complete,
Pretty much,
okay.
yeah.
It's funny you asked that. I just doodled it a couple minutes ago. What would it look like if we just did it in threes?
Because that's what we
you know,
usually look at. And then the doors, how high are the doors?
They're 9 feet.
9 feet, is that is that open?
That's a great door, a big door.
Yeah.
It has
big
some
door.
hinges.
It what?
It needs some good hinges.
Is it going to be too heavy? Is it a very heavy door? No?
No, the hinges will act to counter any
Yeah, nice doors.
weight to it, yes.
And the handles that you've
These are pretty generic handles we just put on there. I'm not sure if you have, what,
They're submitted in the specs.
oh. Oh my God, there's a lot of,
These are right here.
oh.
It's 12 inches.
So it's just a very simple tube, similar to that. I
tube.
don't think it will be quite as large as that.
right.
So, but it's very similar, just to be sort of invisible.
Okay. Thank
Typical
you.
offset pull handle.
Yeah.
So those are my questions. Margaret, do you have your report or questions even?
Well, I think the one question that we had was the bulkhead, so that's been addressed. But I just have a question in terms of the finished floor level. And I understand you're going from a lower level up to a ramp at some point, but I think the right side door, are you going to see the floor?
No, so the right side door is, that level is lower
Okay.
than the floor inside, the
Oh.
finished floor inside the.
All right, and so you're actually, you come out at street level, then you rise up, I guess, once you get inside. So
Correct, you can
you'll
see-
never see the floor behind the doors?
No, if you
Okay.
look at, there's a dashed line right up the, up the
Yeah, I see
bulkhead.
that.
That's, the ramp is literally up against the window. And so that, and then you get to the finished floor level of the retail establishment is higher than when you enter into the,
And on either door?
correct.
Okay, gotcha.
There's a report too, right?
Yes, but the only comment we had was the bulkhead.
Okay. And the bulkhead material, what is that? It says,
It's an insulated metal panel that
Oh,
slides.
it's metal,
Yeah,
okay.
that slides into the storefront channel.
okay. Any other questions? No? All right, so Steve, we'll start with you for comments.
I have no comment. I think it's going to look very nice.
Okay. Jason?
Ditto.
Likewise, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is an improvement, so that's great.
And Nick?
I would agree with my colleagues. I think it's an improvement. I think it simplifies the facade a lot. I think the metal framing is a lot more in keeping with the brick facade than this light stained wood that's on there now. They kind of look very opposite to me. I think this kind of just cleans everything up a little bit, makes it more in line with the punched windows above, so no comment. I think it's a nice design.
And I agree with my colleagues. I just have a question about the light band up there. That remains, correct? That recessed brick panel on the top, that remains. See,
That's a metal.
That's a steel beam.
That's a steel.
oh, that's a steel beam,
W-
okay.
that's a
All right,
W
that's what
flange.
you, okay, I couldn't understand what you
Yeah.
were saying.
And then the goosenecks are attached.
I see that to a piece of conduit.
Yep.
Right, okay, okay, all right, now I understand. But no, I think it cleans up the facade, and actually, even though the fire escape is a intrusion, as it were, it'll make it a lot more compatible. It'll simplify, as you said, Steve, and make it more visually interesting in a very subtle way. So, as a C of A, we need,
Motion. Yep.
might have a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
And should we go down, but Janice, we'll do a,
Roll call vote.
Sure. Mr. Hyman,
Yes.
Mr. Rooney,
Yes.
Mr. Reimnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Giuliano,
Yes.
and Chair Bennett.
yes.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, it'll look nice.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, JC.
Okay. So, moving along to discussion, we had 2 points that we that we addressed last week. One was the follow-up of compliance with what we've approved and what actually happens out in the real world. So I've asked John if he would head a committee to investigate this further, and he has he will. So that's good.
And you found a solution?
I can hardly wait, John. Okay, good.
And then we did have a discussion about the Bellevue Theater, but it was a broader discussion about violations and bordering on demolition by neglect, and I think we're going to hold off on that for
Well,
another.
let me let you know that they reactivated their site plan application.
Oh, good.
Good news, yeah.
That's great news.
Yeah.
So
They watched our meeting.
Yeah.
I've deemed
did.
it incomplete. I'm meeting with their attorney tomorrow to
Great.
try and explain why they need to provide more information.
Right.
But anyway, so you will, I'm just going to talk about process, because
Right.
they've got the application before the planning board. There are some additional changes to the facade in this application that you haven't seen, that you were part of your prior approval. So once it's deemed complete, then I'll send it to the HPC, and then it'll go to the planning board, and hopefully we'll move ahead with some construction on that property.
That's great news.
Jason, they did watch.
They did.
Because someone called me
Yeah.
about it and said they were starting the process
Oh,
again.
that's
Yeah,
good.
no, that's great. Now, the million-dollar question, is that, do you think that will be on the September 14th
Oh,
agenda?
no.
Okay, 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 I just want to make sure. All right.
No.
Any other discussion points, then?
The one project that came here for total demolition, you know, there's an example. Here again, they've let the house go and go and go and go, and now it becomes not an excuse, but a reason, or one of their reasons for total demolition.
Right.
Don't we have some ability to not let that happen?
I had a question. At some point, you lose your C of O?
Well, I believe it, I don't think it has a C of O right now.
Well, I'm sure it doesn't.
Yeah.
But wouldn't, you know.
I
it
think there were
probably-
some,
Trigger something?
I
probably
think that there
had
were
some.
code violations, and so I don't believe it has a C of O.
Right, so I would think that would at least trigger a notice.
But what kind of notice would you, I mean, this happens, we have a lot of derelict properties.
Yeah. What do we do?
That are
What
older
do you
than
do?
50 years?
I've had this discussion with the construction official. Properties where either they've started construction and stopped, or they haven't started at all,
Right.
what do you do? Unless that we do use our vacant and abandoned properties,
Mhm.
but in this case, and I don't know if this property ever came up on our vacant and abandoned properties
I
list.
don't think so.
I don't think so. Probably because nobody could even see it from the street.
Right.
Because that's when it's become a problem issue, we put it on the vacant and abandoned properties issue, then they have to pay their taxes, they have to pay fees, so that we can go in and mow the grass, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think this property ever came to their attention.
I don't think so.
It was too well hidden.
Yeah, I had no idea it was there.
So that's the process.
Yeah,
is
so if
to
there's a
bring it
problem-
to,
Let me know,
okay,
let my department know.
Okay.
And we'll let code enforcement
Yeah.
know, because they're the ones that maintain that vacant and
Okay.
abandoned properties
okay,
list.
great.
And I think right now it's limited to residential. I don't think they go after commercial properties,
Oh, we didn't know that.
unless they've changed their policy and haven't told me.
I
Okay.
thought we had something in the historic districts where we could push commercial owners where facades are falling apart or the bulkheads are falling
Yeah,
apart. I thought we'd been down that
Yeah,
road before.
there's a provision in the
There's a
ordinance about that.
provision in the ordinance
Yeah,
where
but it's
we
got to
have
be
s-
really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
It has to be really bad and
It has to be really bad.
and
But,
unsafe.
if you see something, and
state.
Kathleen, you're excellent about bringing things to our attention. If you see something, let us know, and, we'll address it. Because we don't see everything.
Right. Okay, thank you. So we're the eyes and ears, the eyes of the taste police, as my kids say. All right, any other points? No? All right, with that, we'll have a motion to adjourn, and we will see everyone back for a very, very full meeting on September 14th. I would suggest vitamins and coffee. And we can't start any earlier, so 7:30 then.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.